Example number 2, graph the function, label the vertex, the axis of symmetry, and the x-intercepts, and then tell where the function is positive and negative. So now we're going to use our intercept form to graph, and then we're going to go into some key features and review some of those. So first of all, letter A, f of x equals negative 2 times x minus 4 times x plus 1. This is already in intercept form, so we're first going to find the x-intercepts. We're going to take our P and Q right here, and I'm going to do x minus 4 equals 0. I'm going to do x plus 1 equals 0. I'm going to add my 4, so x equals 4. I'm going to subtract my 1, so x equals negative 1. So my x-intercepts, and you guys can choose to write these in a couple different ways. One of them is writing them as an ordered pair, so you could write 4, 0 and negative 1, 0. Most students I find just like writing x equals 4, negative 1. That's probably the easiest way. I am okay with that. It depends on your teacher. Some teachers might argue about that, but I'm okay with that. And then we're going to put them on the graph. Now, the next thing we need to find is our vertex and axis of symmetry. So axis of symmetry, we're going to go for the middle. Over 1, 2, over 1, 2, which kind of brings me somewhere in the middle here. So it looks like my axis of symmetry is actually going to be at like 1.5. So x equals 1.5. It's in the middle of a box. So then in order to find where my vertex is, I'm going to substitute that back in. So y equals negative 2 times 1.5 minus 4 times 1.5 plus 1. I'm going to grab my calculator because sometimes I'm not that great with this. So y equals negative 2, and then I'm going to take 1.5 minus 4, which is negative 2.5. And then 2.5, and then y equals, negative 2 times negative 2.5 times 2.5, which gets me 12.5. So that means my vertex is at 1.5, comma 12.5. So we're going to go a little bit, 10, 11, we're going to guesstimate up here. And again, from here, you're good to go. But if we wanted to be even more exact, from your vertex, you're going to come over 1, down 2. So over 1, down 2 puts us just right above the graph, over 1, down 2. And then we're going to graph. And there's our parabola. Now, last but not least, we have to say where this thing is positive and negative. Now remember, positive means above the x-axis. Negative means below the x-axis. So I'm going to start with positive. And positive above goes from my negative 1 up and around to my 4. And that's one kind of loop, like one section. I don't have to pick up my pencil. It's just one continuous loop. So for positive, I'm going to have the x in the middle, a less than sign, and a less than sign. If I read it from the middle to the left, it's x is greater than the 1, x is less than the 4. And I'm sorry, that's a negative 1. So that's telling me here's my negative 1, here's my 4, and the positive part is in between those. Now, negative is below, so from negative 1 out, from positive 4 out. And you notice that's like two separate sections. You have to pick up your pencil to draw each one of those black lines. So you're going to have an x is something, comma, x is something. So x is less than negative 1. X is greater than positive 4. Letter B. Q of x equals 4x squared minus 36. Now, once again, there's a whole lot going on here. We now know how to graph in standard form. We could do that. We know how to graph in intercept form. We're going to do that because that's what we're practicing. So, if we're doing intercept form, we have to get this into intercept form, which means we have to factor. Leading term is positive, but there is a greatest common factor. So I'm going to take out a 4. So we're going to have q of x equals 4 times x squared minus 9. Then I'm going to look and say, okay, well, this is x times x. This is 3 times 3, which is going to factor into difference of squares, x plus 3, x minus 3. Don't forget about your greatest common factor of your 4. So now we've got q of x equals 4 times x plus 3, x minus 3. That's going to tell me where my x-intercepts are. So x plus 3 equals 0, x minus 3 equals 0. Subtract your 3, x equals negative 3. Add your 3, x equals 3. So your x-intercepts are going to be at x equals 3 and negative 3. And I'm just going to write them so that I know exactly where they are. That graph's kind of small. Now, next thing we're going to need is we're going to need our axis of symmetry or our vertex. So we go to the middle. If you're at a 3 and a negative 3, the middle, 0. So I know my axis of symmetry is x equals 0. But then where is my vertex? Well, my vertex is going to be at 0 comma something. So we're going to go back up here. Y equals 4 times 0 squared minus 36. 4 times 0 squared is 0. Y equals negative 36. Whoa, so your vertex is at 0, negative 36. Now, that is clearly not fitting on this graph. It's probably not even fitting on this page. So we're just, there's a dot down here somewhere. But for the sake of graphing, even if we came out of that, we'd go over 1 up 4 because of our a. That's not even fitting on the graph. So we're just going to make do, and we're going to go like that. And we're going to go like that. Sorry, that should really go through that dot. And our graph is going to look something like that. Now, before we move on to positive and negative, has anyone figured out anything about that C value? And I probably should have mentioned it before, but do you notice that that negative 36 tends to be down here at the negative 36? Your C value is actually your y-intercept. And now I'm thinking back, I should have mentioned that when we did standard form. So just write it somewhere in your notes for right now. C value equals y-intercept. And I'm sure some of you already noticed that. Wow. Sept. But that's going to happen, especially when you're in standard form. So this is standard form. So your C value here, negative 36, is actually where it hits the y-axis. Moving on. Positive and negative. So positive above the x-axis. You've got this guy above the x-axis and this guy above the x-axis. Two separate pieces. You have to pick up your pencil, which means you're going to have an x something, comma x something. So the left side is when x is less than negative 3, and the right side is when x is greater than positive 3. Negative, you can't see the whole thing, but you go from negative 3 down the whole way and then back up. So it's kind of one continuous part for negative, which means x in the middle, less than, and then negative 3, positive 3. Again, this is x is greater than negative 3, x is less than positive 3.